Amazing. Cool. We've got Fiona.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay, and Dash will come in now. Okay, so we're going to chat a bit about prenatal yoga. I also just want to clarify, like straight off the bat, we're going to do this in 75 minutes. We're not going to tackle the whole world of prenatal yoga in 75 minutes. This is just to give you guys a taste of what you can expect, just to know some gentle guideline, not even guidelines, but just gentle things to speak about. And then we'll go into some of the experiences of it. So as best as what we can. Obviously, I couldn't make everyone 8 months pregnant in the space of a day, but we'll do what best we can. Yes, we can't wait to see Stefan with his preggy belly. All right, so jeez, 10 kilogram accurate.
Yeah, I thought I'd go the extra mile, to like show my appreciation.
Oh, that's great. Okay, awesome. So we're gonna chat a little bit about experiences, and for those that have been who have been practicing, those who have been pregnant, please share your insights, because I think one of the important things that we can do as teachers and persons who have not been pregnant, I think it's very important for us to also know that what we think is not always the truth, right? I was just saying now is that we don't know as teachers what our students are experiencing. We don't know what their pregnancy is like. We don't know what their sensations are like. Even Candace was saying one pregnant woman doesn't know what another pregnant woman's experience is like. And so we need to understand, just as what you guys cover in your pose analysis and your yoga teaching, is that each individual is different. There are very general guidelines that people will showcase, but really it depends. If someone who's been practicing yoga for 10 years and been doing Ashtanga every single morning falls pregnant and they continue with their yoga, is going to be completely different compared to someone who has never done any form of exercise, fallen pregnant, and their doctor recommended yoga would be good, right? There's no way that the same formula is going to fit both of them, right? We kind of agree with that. Yeah, sort of. Okay. So we're going to go just to put that out there, is that each individual is different, but these are some general things that might come up. I can almost guarantee you that somewhere along your teaching, you're going to have someone come into your class who you've never met before, who's going to say, I'm 6 months pregnant. Can I do this class? I mean, they're there. They've come there. You're not going to say, nope, sorry, turn around, go home. It's not going to work for you, right? So we need to know as a teacher, what are we going to do on this spot? Okay. One of the most important things, and this doesn't necessarily come from, I mean, you guys have a very extensive information in your manual, but also from what I've heard from another prenatal teacher, is sometimes it's nice to say, this is not a prenatal class. All right. We need to quickly distinguish between what's a vinyasa class, what's a prenatal class. All right. Prenatal yoga is very different. It's obviously a lot more focused on certain components and aspects that are designed for that exact trimester. All right. And a vinyasa class is not always taking that into account as a precaution. We have just discussed every single injury. Now imagine having someone in your class where one has a knee injury, other one has a shoulder, and the other one's about 7 months pregnant. Modify. It's just, poor you're going to go home and need like a month off after that, right? So it puts a lot of pressure under you as a teacher. So one of the easiest things to do is, if you have a website, I mean, this is more if you're teaching for yourself. Usually studios are good at it. You just put a thing on your website to say, these are not prenatal classes. If you are pregnant, maybe give me a call and chat to me about it. We can see where you are in your journey. We can discuss it, and maybe I can refer you off to another prenatal teacher. All right. There is no one size fits all. A student might come to you and say, I'm super happy to do vinyasa. I'm feeling great. I would like to continue for the next 3 months and then move over. That's up to them. As long as you say, this is not prenatal, these are the kind of things you can look out for. Once again, not diagnosing, not catastrophizing and saying, don't do anything because of whatever. Once again, we do need to put the ball on that court. I can guarantee you now, maybe some of the women who have been pregnant can vouch for that. You know what you want. If you're not feeling well, you're not going to go into a studio if you're feeling horrible. I don't know. Can you, am I making sense when I say that? I'm sure it's relatable. All right. So that's something nice to say. And if someone comes to the class and says, I'm 7 months pregnant, look, I'm not a prenatal teacher. these are some general things that I can advise to you. If you have discomfort, back off. Good. Stefan?
Okay, this might never happen, but just so that I'm clear, like, what happens when a 7-month-old woman does come in and, like, I can see that she's overstraining, and, like, how do I tell a pregnant woman to say, like, maybe you should back off? Because there's a lot of emotions and other stuff going on in there, and that is kind of an anxiety for me. Like, if she's in a state, how do I politely say, listen, maybe back off, chill a bit, like, don't wake it up.
Carmel's laughing. I want her to answer the question for you. She wasn't here. Candice, do you have anything to add? If you were 7 months pregnant, someone told you to back off, would you?
No. This is on. No. I should specify. Like, if I can see that they're overexerting, or if again, this is going back to what we were discussing earlier. Because now that the pregnancy is coming in, I can visibly, like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me as a guy. I feel a bit like I would feel a bit anxious having somebody like that, having a pregnant woman at that stage in my class. Like, please tell me, like, how would you, or how do I actually go about handling that kind of a situation? Should it get to the point where I feel it is bad enough to intervene?
I'll give my 2 cents. I'm gonna. Were you speaking, Candice?
Yeah, but you can go first.
No. I was gonna say, and I think your chances of experiencing that are low. But
I like to be prepared. So
you like to be prepared. Do you want to add something to that, Candice? Because maybe I want your personal experience before I give more of a generic answer.
No, I was going to say something very similar. When you're 7 months pregnant, like, walking is a pain in the ass, literally. So going to a yoga class and overexerting yourself is likely never going to happen, in all honesty. There's so much else going on in your body, so many aches and pains, you're so heavy. You're not going to be trying to do chaturangas at 7 months, or any sort of back bending. You can't even, like, lie on your tummy.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody overexerting themselves in yoga at that point of a pregnancy.
Yeah, that would be my answer too. And if in some case you do, tell her to phone us and we'll get her to teach you guys on the trainings on the next round. But seriously, it is very unlikely that will happen. If you have someone, I mean, let's maybe not even push it as far as 7 months. Let's push it like 3 or 4 months. You know, if I think that a lot goes to say about pregnant woman, a woman, a male, a student, anyone coming into your class. It's a similar approach to say, you know your boundaries, all right? When someone, and these kind of seem pretty obvious for, I think, anyone who's had a child or been pregnant, but it's kind of that thing to say, when I fall pregnant, this is not the time for me to advance my yoga practice. This is not the time that goes, hey, you know, Titi Basana, hey, always wanted to do that. And I think that's also the shift that goes on. There's this kind of realization that this is not the time that I'm going to suddenly become strong and work on my core. I mean, something funny like that. But there is that going to be that acceptance that it's not going to feel good in my body. And if I'm making that decision on myself and I'm empowered to say, listen to my body, if I'm listening, it's going to be shouting. Or it's going to be telling me it's not going to work. All right. I mean, it's more so much the case that what you guys will experience is possibly someone who's like, let's say about 10 weeks pregnant, all right? Not even, let's say like 4 weeks, all right? Very early stages. They come into the class and we go, is there anyone that's got, we're not going to do this, but it's happened. Is anyone here got an injury, or is anyone pregnant? Now, generally speaking, for the first 10 to 12 weeks, people aren't claiming their pregnancy like, hey, I'm 3 weeks along. You know, often it's a secret, often you don't know, often it's to yourself. And so just blurting something out in front of a gym class and in front of strangers, you know, some people might, I mean, I've been in a class where someone was like, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But then what's the teacher going to say? Okay, listen to your body and back off when you feel discomfort. But so when we're looking at those first initial stages, someone might come into your class and just not even want to disclose that to you, all right? So if you're already approaching the class saying, look, if you feel, listen to your body, if you feel discomfort, back off. hopefully that's enough of an invitation to say to them, you know, I'm kind of aware that my body might be in this transitioning phase. Maybe I know I'm pregnant, maybe I'm not. And so this is now up to me to start listening to my body, because the longer you go on through your pregnancy, your yoga practice shifts. It's not about conditioning, doing handstands. The intention behind prenatal yoga is a lot more on connecting to breath, connecting to your body. There's a big community aspect that comes in when you do prenatal classes specifically. And so there's a bit of an intention shift, all right? If you are teaching classes and maybe you have a group of regulars and someone does disclose it to you and they're in the first few months, you know, they'll be aware of what they'll be experiencing with symptoms. You know, if they've suffering with a little bit of morning sickness, it's very likely that they won't be in your class anyway. But let's say they're in the class and something happens, it's nice to say, look, maybe you want to position yourself close to the door so you can leave easily. You might want to advise hot yoga is not the best thing to do at this time, but I don't know a lot of women that are like, whoo, I'm pregnant, not feeling well, let's go do a hot yoga class. All right. So a lot of these things we're discussing and we are concerned about are not always the case, unless maybe they have no idea what hot yoga is or they have no idea what yoga is. All right. So if someone is coming to your class with a very vigorous practice, I mean, you'll get a lot of teachers who will start, you know, giving instances where they're like, oh, okay, you're pregnant, you're in the first, let's say you're still in the first trimester, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, which is like, yes, for some, but no for others. All right. So when you give them the cue to say, listen to your body and back off, some might feel happy to go into some twist, some might not want to go at all. Other people are still pretty happy about it. All right. So there is a very large individual component that happens, especially in that first trimester where, you know, people might say you are somewhat at risk because the fetus isn't fully implanted. So you don't want to jump to the front of your mat. But if we consider yoga in the greater scheme of different types of forms of exercise, yoga is pretty low impact. All right. We're not jumping up and down a million times. You might step to the front of your mat every now and then. All right. So we can give certain guidelines, you know, we can give such generic statements, but it's not really until we know the individual exactly, or we've been working with them for long periods of time, or we are specifically trained in prenatal, that we can really give them solid advice. All right. It's always nice to recommend a prenatal class, because if they're going to do your class for about 12 weeks, chances are they're going to want to transition to another teacher. So there's no harm in transitioning to another teacher sooner to follow you through that journey, but it's up to them to make that decision for you. All right.
I think also, Taryn, just speaking from personal experience, when you're pregnant, I think it's the one time you can rely on your students that they have actually been to a doctor, they have been to a gynae, and they have received the professional advice to either do more or do less. So, and that happens throughout your pregnancy, no matter which trimester you're in. So whether you're in your first trimester, your gynae will tell you, okay, look, this is a dangerous period, so don't do anything strenuous. And you as a mom, you're not going to walk into a yoga class and do something strenuous. So I think this is the one time when you can actually rely on the individual to take responsibility for themselves and their own actions. And the same would apply within the second trimester. Then they may be experiencing a bit more complications, and the gynae would then again say, no, you got to take it even easier. So they'll still come to your class to maybe get in a bit of exercise, but you'll notice that they'll do even less. So you can rely on that individual to follow their own bodies and to follow the doctor's advice and the doctor's instructions.
Yeah, it definitely, I mean, it comes down to, I mean, I think that anyone coming to yoga does have some form of wanting to connect yourself. They've either done yoga before or they're looking for that. And it very much depends on the kind of yoga you're teaching. If you guys are going out and teaching fast power vinyasa, you might not experience this as much as teachers who take to more gentle hatha approach. All right. So take note of how you might present yourself as a teacher. Candice, you want to add to this?
Yes, I was going to say The general rule with exercise in pregnancy is that whatever you're doing before you got pregnant, you can continue with into your pregnancy, unless it's something that's dangerous, like horse riding where you could fall, or anything that's like high impact kind of stuff. So if you've got a student that's been practicing with you for a while, and they are okay with their yoga practice, and they've been doing it for a long time and their body's used to it, they can continue with that same practice while they're pregnant. However, at some point, it's going to be too uncomfortable and too inaccessible for them to carry on with a normal yoga practice. And that's when they might want to switch over to an actual prenatal class, not because it's dangerous to continue with normal yoga class, but just because it's not working for them anymore for what their body is doing. And the prenatal classes are very specialized in that, not only like, don't do this, don't do that, it's specialized in what's good for your body being pregnant. So you're holding a lot of weight in the lower part of your body, your pelvis is shifting like apart, your organs have all moved around to accommodate your belly and your baby, your hips are taking a lot of strain, your glutes are on fire all of the time, your feet are swollen. So it's just poses that are gentle enough to cater for those and able to stretch the parts of your body that are feeling really tight and really tense. So it's not a case of don't do normal yoga because it's dangerous. Prenatal is more specialized to the pregnant body.
100%.
That's all I wanted to say.
No, perfect. Thanks so much for that, Candice. And I agree with what Candice says, is that a mom or a mom to be will make a decision way before you are telling her whether she needs to do yoga or not, right? Like, she knows her body more than any other teacher can tell her. If she's happy in the class, she'll be fine. But like Candice says, there'll be a time where she'll transition. Prenatal yoga is absolutely incredible. There's a lot of trainings that are happening here locally that don't even focus only on prenatal, but follows, specifically one of my friends teaches womb yoga, which is more, following the whole woman's cycle through like pre-pregnancy, pregnancy, post-pregnancy, menopause, and looking at everything that's happening in there, knowing what is going on at each of these stages, what's happening hormonally, what's happening physically, what's happening emotionally. And, there's even different postures, different prop usage, different breathing techniques that are specialized to that. So to a certain extent, we can think on our feet and adapt. We can say, look, this is what I would recommend. Maybe don't twist as much, listen to your body. Maybe do this when you forward fold, listen to your body. But essentially, you'll find that someone who is pregnant is naturally going to move in that way because they don't want to move into a pose where it's not going to feel good, all right? And this is in the very rare occasion that you get someone in the late second or third trimester who's coming into your general vinyasa classes. Of course, if you then want to go on and specialize in prenatal, you guys are going to learn all the tricks and the trades by the time that you get there, all right? A general rule of thumb, and this is super duper generic, like Candice says, if, let's say, for example, Catherine was doing inversions every single day and holding headstand for 10 minutes every day. If she went into a class and the teacher said, look, you can do a headstand, they said, no, Catherine, don't do a headstand. And she's like, this standing on my head is the equivalent of cycling to someone else, or whatever the case may be, So it's all relative to the kind of individual. Of course, she might say, I don't really want to, which is most likely. But the only risk that falls in with example inversions is that there's the falling risk, more so than the actual fact of being upside down, right? Is that it's going to be a risk. And so we might offer, I would recommend, or I would suggest maybe taking legs up against the wall. It will probably feel better anyway. And I don't know about you guys, but I would way rather take up legs against the wall versus an inversion, because it's right, it does feel better. So your role as a teacher is to explain to them that a prenatal, if they're not aware of specific prenatal classes, is that there is a style of yoga that is more suited to pregnancy, and we would recommend that. It's really nice to have some suggestions of classes in your area. There's a teacher down the road, there's a teacher here. I would recommend you go and practice with them. And for this class today, I would recommend you listen to your body and look, this is more like, I want to say the first half of the pregnancy, when the belly isn't that big as well. So we might say, if you're uncomfortable in the twist less. If you're folding forward, fold less, all right? So have you noticed how I wanted to do the pregnancy after the injury? Because it's kind of the same approach. We're not saying pregnancy is an injury, not at all, but it has a similar approach from us as a teacher, because I am not a gynecologist, I am not a doctor, I am not a prenatal therapist, or whatever the case may be. All right. So this is just for us to understand that, we've got compassion. We understand what might come up, and I can adjust accordingly. But I'm not going to tell something ridiculous to a pregnant woman, to be cautious or be scared about this, because, we don't want to also instill fear, or, that, it is pretty much instilling fear. All right. So without further ado, put in your preggy bellies. This is going to be so fun. I want to see how you guys look with your bellies. Oh, Candace has got twins. Okay. And now okay, cool. We put in a belly. We've given you one factor. We luckily haven't given you any excess hormones. We also haven't given you swollen feet. We haven't given you fatigue, lack of sleep. We haven't given you any of the above. We've given you one factor of it. And so you guys look like a pretty happy bunch of pregnant women and one male, which is interesting to see. And Stefan's like got a 5 kilogram. Woo, okay. All right, let's stand at the top of our mat. I'm a teacher now. All right. I've told you to listen to your body. So in this, I want you to listen to your body. In fact, maybe what I want you to do, I'm sorry, moms to be, but I want you guys to just unmute yourselves, so that if you do want to chat, you guys can just shout out, because I do know you guys on the mat, and I want you to give some feedback.
I think if anybody from my family walks in, they will think I've gone crazy.
Yeah. You're like, I'm trying to just do yoga. All right. So, of course, this is now a vinyasa class. Okay. I'm not teaching you as a prenatal class. This is vinyasa. So you're going to stand at the top of your mat. Okay. Can you guys bring your toes and heels to touch? Good. Arms resting along the side of the body. Find your way in Tadasana. Good. Some of you guys have quite square babies. Hey, it's fascinating. All right. On your next inhale, can you reach your arms up overhead, high mountain pose? As you exhale, fold forward. Oh. Okay, I've got some. Okay, fascinating. Modify to what feels good for your body. Obviously, I wouldn't cue it like this. I would be a slightly better teacher. So what would help you if you had a little bit of a belly? And yeah. Okay, we've got some squatting shapes going on. We've got some halfway lifts. Okay. So Candace has some blocks. She's lifted herself up slightly into a halfway lift. Notice what it feels like if you part your feet a bit wider. Does that allow for movement? Does it not? You guys have all different size bellies. You all have different size hamstrings. None of your shapes look the same. Is anyone particularly happy in this pose, besides the fact that it's inversion and it probably doesn't feel good to be inverted? Okay. All right. Plant your hands onto the mat. Haida is losing her belly. Plant your hands onto your mat. Step back into a downward facing dog. So I'm not saying all of these poses are yays or nays. I just want you to feel, how does the pose feel like when I have suddenly got a very minimal extra load? Good. Drop your knees down to the mat. Find your way into child's pose. Your variation of child's pose that feels good for you. Okay.
Tummy's in the way.
Yeah, my tummy's in the way, right? It depends. So, for example, if you were in your first trimester and you didn't have a big belly, you'd probably be okay. But for those of you who are about to pop, how does that feel?
Not great.
Not great, right? Let's see for those, if you prop yourself up on your hands, notice how that feels. Just feel them out. Okay, good. Now come up into an all fours position. She's Stefan.
It's quite fun, it's challenging from like mechanical workout perspective.
Okay, so now you guys can just race back onto your knees, all right? So now, do you understand why possibly someone who's 7 months pregnant doesn't want to do your vinyasa class. I haven't even led them through a chaturanga. All right, so would it be viable for me to say, come to lie down on your belly? That's, Candace is like, no, because if you had to ever instruct that as a teacher, I'm going to hope you just don't. All right, that's a no-go, right? Just no. All right. However, some of you guys are quite far along. So now if I had a class where someone was in their first trimester, someone was in second, someone was in third, never ever happened in your life. So everyone's got different things to work on at this time. All right. Let's make our way into a downward facing dog again. You know, vinyasa is quite up and down like this. And so we would somewhat expect someone to feel okay with that. Okay. Let's make your way to the top of your mat. Yeah. You see, no one jumped to the top of the mat. So we don't have to tell them to not jump. I can tell you now they're not going to jump. All right. And then just bring your way up to standing, rolling up, make your way up. That's okay. Good. Keep your left foot at the top of the mat. Take a big step back with your right foot, coming into a warrior one. If you feel any discomfort in this pose, just do less. Modify into your feet if you feel like you want to make your stance slightly wider, slightly shorter. Okay, now I would have to call on our previous moms here. How does this feel on your back? How does it feel on your legs? All right. So now I've got
I don't see myself doing any of these with a pillow on.
So Carmel's like, I didn't even know I would do this even with the baby. Now we're doing it with the pillow, right? So just step to the top of your mat. You guys all look exhausted already, and we've done 5 minutes of a class, all right? And it's not so much that moms won't feel comfortable in the pose. It's more just about, you know, was yoga designed? No, I mean, yoga was designed by men for men originally. But, you know, are these poses really conducive to what women want to be doing at this time? Most likely not, all right? It's not to say that standing postures are an absolute no, but for those in your third trimester, I would say no. All right, let's part our feet hip width apart, toes pointing out. You can make your way into a Malasana squat. Okay, so first trimester, you'll probably be okay. But I can tell you now, even if your belly can come between your thighs, your hips and your back might not be really happy. Good, bring your hands back.
A lot in prenatal yoga, the Malasana squat.
Yes, you'll do a lot of, did you not use props though?
No, we did a lot of squatting. It's something to do with like moving the baby down the birth canal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So especially
it's really on the lower back.
Yeah.
Stretch that.
Yeah, so if you can get into the shape, it is really good for that. So what Candace was saying there is when you get into any squatting position, what you're doing is it facilitates the turning of the head downwards. So it's pretty much helping in that kind of inverting of the baby that will happen just before you go into birth or just before you give birth with the head down shape. Place your hands behind you, come to sit down, soles of the feet together in Baddha Konasana. All right. If you wanted to, you could prop your sitting bones up onto a block just to give the hips a little bit of height if that feels nice. You can have the hands behind you for a bit of support if that feels better. So generally your prenatal classes, as a big generalization, they do a lot of hip openers, right? So you've got your butterfly poses, you will do your squats, you might do some other variations where you're doing some very gentle twists. Yeah, like Nicole's doing, she's decided to straighten her legs because her hips are sore from her lack of sleeping, she told me. All right, good. Right. So we're going to just, if you have your hands behind you, just lift yourself up. So you can choose to stay in a butterfly position. Another option from here is maybe to cross the ankles if you feel like that's a little bit more comfortable. Okay. Going to inhale, extend the arms up. And then as you exhale, take a gentle twist over towards the right side. How does that feel? Nicole can't go very far. So she's going to go as far as what she can, right? She's not yanking herself into a pose like we sometimes see in normal vinyasa. How does Candace feel there? Candace can twist quite a bit, although she's got her belly's moved slightly sideways. She just planted her baby straight in place and now she's twisted. One thing women can't do is just, hey, move over to the side. Inhale, bring your arms back up. And then go over to the left-hand side. Nice. Good, we'll just hold it for breath here because I want to even it out on both sides. Good. All right, now I want you to notice what this twist felt like. Inhale, come up. You can use your hands behind you for support, just straighten out your legs. So just plant your hands, straighten out your legs in front of you. Good, now bring your right knee into your chest, plant your right foot on the floor. Okay, now let's see that twist compared to Marichasana, all right? So Lord of the Fishes pose, right knees into your chest. Inhale, extend your right arm up. Place your right hand behind you. And then your left hand can either bind around that knee or hook the elbow.
No.
Is this a yes or is this a no? Okay, guys, why can't you twist in this shape?
Because the baby doesn't allow it.
Okay, good. That's pretty obvious, right? I'm glad we came to that. I would have been a bit concerned if you were like, yes, I'm definitely putting this in my prenatal class. All right, move back to center. Let your right knee drop out to the side. So move into a January Sirsasana pose. Fingertips on each side of that left foot. And then what you can do is gently fold forward. If you feel any discomfort, do less or just stay. All right. Now in any forward folding pose, I see some of you are like squishing your babies there. It's not going to happen, right? But you know, it depends on the intention of our pose, right? Are we wanting to go all the way down and put our forehead on our knee? It's not gonna happen unless you've got someone who's got like a teeny little belly, all right? So suddenly our intention of our January Sirsasana, if they were in a general vinyasa class, you don't have to fold all the way forward. You can just be up, all right? Bring your hands behind you, straighten your right leg out, bring your left knee in. Good, let's not do the twist because our poor baby's gonna be squished. Drop your left knee out to the side. All right, so myself as a teacher, you know, am I gonna go to someone and say, don't twist very far in a pose? Do you think they would? I don't know. Maybe Carmel, would you? If you were pregnant, not that you would now.
No. I wouldn't, personally, I wouldn't put myself in any position that would be uncomfortable. And also your body proportions would get in the way. So it would be way too uncomfortable.
So that kind of makes sense. What Carmel's saying there is that she wouldn't put anyone into a position that they don't feel comfortable in. Besides Carmel, Candace, Haida, and who else had the child? There was one more, Fiona. Besides them four, none of us know what feels uncomfortable, all right? So it comes back to, how do I know what feels uncomfortable or not, all right? I'm gonna go, I want 4 suggestions, and I mean, those who have been pregnant really kick in because it's only gonna help us as teachers who don't have an experience of it, and for the rest of the group here. We're going to come up with 4 poses that are probably a no-go and 4 poses that are probably all right. We're not doing prenatal yoga, specifically in our vinyasa classes. If we had to come across it, let's go with, you just raise your hand just so that we don't all shout at the same time, but one definite no-go. Was yours a no-go, Candace? Okay, Candace is going to give us a no-go.
Yes, any twist towards, what's the twist we just did now?
Marichasana.
Are you twisting into
okay
that? Yeah.
Let's okay, so let's come down to sitting on our glutes. I like that one. It's a good point. Bring your sitting on your bum, leg straight. Bring your left knee into your chest. All right, now don't bring your left knee in a lot. All right, you don't even have to bring your left knee in at all. If this feels uncomfortable, I would suggest you straighten both legs. Bring your right hand behind you onto the floor. Good. And your left hand can come up onto your left knee. And then gently gaze over to your right shoulder. All right. How does this pose feel as opposed to the other one? Amy, just twist the other way. Oh, no. Keep your knee. It's an open twist. So instead of where I don't know if you guys can see me. I was here, instead of twisting into my leg, twist open, this knee can relax, this leg can straighten if it still doesn't feel comfortable, all right? Notice that. Which one felt better? All right. So open twist versus closed twist. All right. It's nice of Candice to bring that up because one side twisting into this one, compressing into the thigh, this one space. All right. That being said, I still give a suggestion. You can move that knee away. You can straighten out the leg. All right. So there's options. Anyone else with a no-go? Like
Chaturanga.
chaturanga. Okay. Come up onto your hands and your knees. I'll just do a baby chaturanga. Hands and knees. Of course, I wouldn't even do that transition. Spread your hands nice and wide. Good. We'll just do a half chaturanga because I wouldn't do that to a pregnant woman as well. Okay, start to lean forward slightly over the fingertips. Bend into the elbows, lower down halfway. And I'm not putting her onto the belly, so I'm going to say inhale, upward facing dog. All right, what is upward? Oh, sorry, you guys are losing me. Have you got me? I left you hanging in chaturanga. Just give me a heads up if you can hear me.
Yes.
There we go. Sorry guys. Okay. I saw it said my connection was unstable. Okay, you can just drop down onto your hands and knees again. So chaturanga doesn't feel comfortable because where do we usually go to from chaturanga?
Upward facing dog.
Upward
Or
facing
cobra.
dog. Or if I wasn't going to upward facing dog, where would I go?
On my tummy.
Cobra.
Cobra on my tummy, or push back up to plank, which is also not fun, right? So anything down onto the belly is generally a no-go. First trimester, it might be okay, but you guys are all pretty far along. Okay. Generally, everything on the belly, for obvious reasons, is not gonna feel good. Okay, let's do 2 more no-goes.
Like bow pose.
Bow pose. I'm not even gonna, actually, yeah, lie down on your bellies. Guys, I'm not giving you any suggestions of what you should do. Feel what it's like, but of course, did you say boat or bow? No, bow pose, lying down on your bellies. I do not advocate for this kind of behavior. But lie down on your bellies, on your tummy, Marlene.
No.
Baby squat. Candice is quite an ethical mother. She's like, this is not good for my child. Okay, bend into your
I'm
elbow.
gonna pop my ball.
Well, in all honesty, the Candice's position would be my position throughout the entire class. I'd be sitting on my bum all the time.
Exactly right. So suddenly we remove anything that's, a lot of things, hands and knees. Think about yoga, like a lot of standing, a lot on your belly, a lot of our transitions suddenly don't cut it anymore. So vinyasa becomes a whole different game. Let's do one more absolute no-go. Let me not say absolute because I'm absolute for you guys in your 3rd trimester because it's not fun. Fiona?
So I don't know. I had really big babies. So anything that I I couldn't lie breathing. So like so I wouldn't be able to do Shavasana because I can only go on my side. So it was off the airways.
Yeah.
It's like super strenuous.
Yeah, so generally, there's a really cool article. Catherine's spoken about Jenny Rawlings to you guys, right? You guys see it's all over the gram. So she has an article on her blog saying 4 myths about prenatal yoga. So generally, 4 of the things we say when we teach prenatal yoga is we say like no inversions, no twists, no back bend, no lying on your back. All right. So those are generally what they say, like, look, if you want to be safe, don't do it. All right. That takes all pressure off you as a teacher, but suddenly you've eliminated half of the yoga practice. So they've got a lot of research now where they say, well, look, it depends. So when you're lying on your back, you've got your inferior vena cava. So that is a vein that carries deoxygenated blood. It runs along the back of the right side of the body. So what they say is when you lie on your back, that cuts off a blood supply to your uterus. Okay. A lot of women will feel uncomfortable, so they won't lie there because it doesn't feel good. You might get someone go, hey, I'm happy with it, all right? But what variation can we do? Does anyone have a block or a pillow nearby? Okay, look, we would have a lot more props available, but just as an option, you can lie on your side in a Shavasana. If we had a lot of props, you might put a bolster behind the back just to keep you in that side lying position. You could have something under your head. You might want to put a block between your knees. So find yourself in your variation of a Shavasana. And because each of us have different sized babies, all of us are different far along, for this Bailey, I want you to find your way into a beautiful side lying Shavasana position. And of course, for Shavasana, we can lie on our arm, but you would maybe not feel comfortable after time. So you can definitely now for the temporary, but in a 10-minute Shavasana class, we would give you a prop of sorts. Okay, so find your way into a Shavasana. Of course, you don't have all your props now. Our prenatal classes are super duper propped. All right. Many of you have a block between your knees or your thighs. You're lying on the right side. Everyone's got a smile on your face. Everyone's happy. Alicia's lying on her block and her bottom arm is straight, so she's not even lying on that arm. All right. And you could give the option, you can lie on your right or your left side, because to be honest, for me as a teacher, it doesn't really matter. So lie on a side that you feel the most comfortable with. All right. And you've got, prenatal yoga teachers have a lot of different techniques and practices that they might incorporate into Shavasana, but ultimately the mom is happy and content and propped and supported, because essentially in order to really enjoy our relaxation, we want to find some sense of comfort. Although we might not feel as comfortable as what we would in maybe a normal yoga class where we're all propped up, we want to find some sort of feeling of being held as best we can. All right, let's make our way back up. Just be gentle and mindful for your bellies. This kind of covered into it was something we wouldn't want to do, lying on our back. Of course, if a mom was fine with it, you could. Let's maybe look at another 3 poses that you think are pretty good to go. Something that might feel really nice. And you can try it out. Like maybe do it and say, yes, no, maybe. We can guess.
Some lateral or side stretches.
Cool. So let's just come down to sitting. I'm going to come to someone now. So the other thing is that they also said like no back bending, no core. That was also like one of the warning signs. So you've pretty much almost taken it out. All right, let's just bring our left hand down, stretch your right arm up and over. Good. You can notice what it feels like. Some of you guys have bent so far down. It's like the belly is not even on the side of you. That's kind of what it feels like. It's like we now have a belly on the front, but now we've kind of eliminated and we've assumed that nothing happens to the side and the back of the body. It's just something here and the rest of the body's great. Inhale, come up.
No, you're gonna get stuck over here.
That's what I was gonna say. So we wouldn't essentially this in your side, everyone's like down here. It's not going to, that's not going to happen. You might be up here. So your side stretch is more like a gentle guided leaning, just a gentle lean. Maybe my language might do that. Come up and gently lean to the other side. We'll move slowly. We might do some synchronized breath. And that might feel good. One woman might be like, that feels horrible. And you'll say, just do less or just sit, or whatever. All right, let's maybe do another one. Maybe someone else who had a favorite pose. Nicole?
Seated cat and cow.
So let's try a seated cat and cow. You guys have all different bellies. So let's do it seated and then let's do it on our hands and our knees. All right. So bring your hands onto your knees. Find a nice inhale. Roll the pelvis forward. You might pull the shoulders back. How far do you feel you can go into your seated cow? And then roll back, move into your cat. All right, now this is kind of giving the same shape as a forward fold, right? So we're going to be extremely limited by it, but we might have a very gentle movement. So once again, it would depend, all right? Coming forward, how much mobility you had before pregnancy, how you're feeling today, and slightly roll back, all right? If you were, would it feel different if you were propped up on your sitting bones were lifted? How would it feel different? Would you feel as though it's something you want to do? These are kind of the questions you ask. So there's no rule like you must do this or you mustn't do that. It's going to depend for each person, right? Right, let's roll over onto our hands and our knees. Let's do a cat-cow on your hands and your knees. So this is a position you would do in a prenatal class. It also depends. You wouldn't be able to do your cat-cow as you would as extensively in your vinyasa class, but move through it. Did you do these ones in your prenatal classes, Candice?
Loads.
Loads of them.
Yeah.
So if you think
and
about it, on your hands and knees it's quite I guess somewhat an accessible position, like it doesn't sometimes when you're sitting you feel difference in your pelvis, in your lower belly, the way that you're sitting is different, but on all fours it's a loads, one that she said they did a lot, that squatting, and generally butterfly pose comes in abundance.
And a lot of moving the hips around.
Sorry?
Said my boyfriend just got the shock of his life when he walked in here.
He was like, that happened quickly. So
that was fast.
So loads of cats and cows, loads of squats, loads of butterflies. Candice also said lots of moving the hips from side to side, free movement, things like that. It's all kinds of general mobility going on there. Let's try and think of one more that feels really good.
Child's pose.
Yeah, also child's pose.
Wide-legged child's pose.
Super wide-legged. And, you guys don't have a lot of props here. Obviously, you don't need a prop underneath the belly because you've got something. But, having some sort of support is sometimes...
Happy baby! Happy baby's great! Look at this!
Happy baby, yes.
Happy baby. Okay, we know that so the variation with child's pose was just to bring our knees wider, obviously, because we want space, all right? Let's come to lie down on our backs. Now, remember, you would have some people would say, lying on my back doesn't feel good, and you might give them another option. You might not do it, whatever the case may be. You can also do a variation of happy baby seated. So once again, it really does feel different for everybody. Okay. You guys look wonderful. So this is pretty much very similar to a Malasana squat, right? So you've got that knee compression quite up into the chest. Your knees come out to the side, so you're moving around the belly, so that's okay. And you guys all look happy. And this all looks good. And then what we would often do, which sometimes feel nice, especially for swelling of the feet. You might in your prenatal classes do some foot mobility things. You might do like working with the toes and getting some movement in the feet. Can do legs up against the wall, but then you would most likely be up against the wall. So you don't have to move up. You would just send your legs up. You can have some support underneath the hips. And this is just a nice way to literally get off your feet.
There was one other one we did a lot that I can't actually remember how to do it now, but it was, I think it was gate pose, where like you kind of like I don't know what it was.
Yes.
Something like something there.
Yeah, so that exactly gate pose. And the reason being is that because you're kind of standing up on your knees, you're not so much limited, but it's giving you a side stretch. So sometimes when you're sitting, like you said, somewhat from your hip, do you see there how much more she can possibly side bend? I say maybe because it depends. Then where she's sitting and doing a side bend. So a gate pose is also going to give you a whole different sensation. I've got when we finish our last pose here, I've got a little slide that's just going to show you a couple of photos, but once again, these are all just standard and not really adapted to the individual. I think what's really nice about these poses is that we become so accustomed to doing poses in a certain way, and we're designed to do yoga for a body that looks like this and this flexibility and that kind of range. And adding a preggy belly doesn't only limit space and movement in some direction, but it also shifts our center of gravity. Like balance is so much harder. Suddenly balancing on one leg is like, that's adding a whole new dynamic. So if you wanted to do balance, would you have support by the wall? Is it a risk? Is someone going to fall? Hopefully that's not the case. But it's just thinking about that. There's a lot of factors that are coming into play. Endurance, you might not want to do a whole hour's class. Shavasana might be a lot longer because you're going to appreciate it so much more. So the whole intention shift is a bit better. I think it was only Candice who did prenatal classes, but especially one of the group classes they do here in Cape Town is there's a massive support system, right? Suddenly you're surrounded by a whole lot of moms, and I mean, whether you want that or not, but there's information sharing, there might be some communication, everyone's coming to yoga, there might be chats. I was speaking to another friend of mine who teaches a lot of prenatal yoga, and she was saying that in her specific studio, people linger, they chat, they have a cup of tea. So there can also be that more of a supportive community aspect than just come to your yoga class and move on. It depends on whether you want that, right? How are we feeling? You guys look exhausted. You see, and we only did 30 minutes and we need a Shavasana. Okay, you guys can move back to the camera, and you can remove your child. Right. So of course, this is only giving you a bit of a taste. It doesn't even give you the true experience. But I think for us as teachers,
we're feeling good that we're not pregnant.
You feel good that you're not pregnant. I think so. From my personal experience, I don't think I think it definitely helps if you want to teach prenatal yoga to have gone through pregnancy. I think that says, that speaks for itself. For various reasons, is something experiential, and just because your experience of your pregnancy as a teacher doesn't necessarily mean your students are having the same thing. So something nice to consider if you ever do want to go into this. I know some really awesome trainings, don't really do a lot at wellness, although maybe I'll tell Catherine to do one in the future, right? So, when you're doing a training, there's a lot of different things that you'll discuss in detail. You'll go into anatomy changes, physical changes, hormonal changes as per each trimester. You'll look at things like the pelvic floor, and you'll go into the anatomy and things like that. I don't feel it's so necessary for us to dive into that, because I think if you want to go into it, just do a prenatal training. I actually signed up for one, and it wasn't too pricey. And unfortunately, they had to cancel it because there wasn't enough demand. So it's one of those things that I think happen. A lot of women do yoga. We know that, right? And a lot of women in the ages of, I don't know, let's say within what would be normal pregnancy age, women who fall within ages when they fall pregnant, because it's such a wide gap, they do yoga too. So it's very likely that someone who comes to your class will fall pregnant or is pregnant, or someone refers a friend who's pregnant. So I think it does help for us to have some form of knowledge. And if that kind of practice really resonates with you, it's worth it to go on and do additional training in it. I'll share a bit of a picture with you just so you can see, because I don't know if we did our pregnant woman justice, but here's some pictures. Let's see how many I've got. So these are just a handful of pictures. This is the side stretch we did. So you see, you guys were like all the way down there. She didn't go as far as what you guys did. Here's just a butterfly pose. Here's a bit of a gate pose, but do you see most of them are hip openers? Hips are always wide, obviously to compensate, to make space. Malasana squat, lots of those. It is generally like your squats are your bear down position. It's like a position you use a lot. So of course, I actually know this incredible prenatal yoga teacher who's also a doula, and so combined those two practices together. So you get a lot of practices that incorporate specific breathing techniques to help you through your labor, through the birthing process, types of meditation and mindful practices while you are in labor, having a doula there who's a yoga teacher who kind of leads those practices with you. So, you can also use your prenatal yoga practice in order to work on breathing, to work on stretches that you might want to do, to work on meditation, or whatever the case may be. Those can easily weave their way in. And of course, relaxation, working on, your own perception of birth, your expectations. the whole social emotional side of it as well. Lots of cat cows. This lady was brave with her warrior one, but she looks pretty happy. So if she's happy, that's fine. And then I've got some really nice pictures here of the how beautiful is this one in the top left. She looks so snug. She's got her candles. So it's more than just the physical experience, which I'm sure those who have done it can say that as well, but it is more than just the physical practice. The one on the top right is pretty cool just because of the way that she has been propped, so it's nice to see that different option. And then the bottom right, legs up against the wall, but she's got a bolster under her back, so that would completely depend on you as to whether that feels good for you. This is just it's a very generic, see, it says your core strength and sacral stability. Okay, that's a bit intense. But these are specific classes designed that you can, you can look at and find these things online. But of course, I'm not going to say to anyone to go out there and be like, oh, I found this online and now it's a suddenly fix all for everyone. But it's just to kind of show you some variations, chair pose with the wall. You've got your quad stretches. Some you might use a chair, strap, just a couple of options. And there, once again, props, options. This is a sun salutation, options, right? So suddenly we're just seeing things in a different way. Instead of doing a forward fold, up dog, down dog, they've just brought in the squat, slight little twist, and come back up, all right? This is not to say this is the way and only way, it's just a way. Okay. I put these in because they're also quite a popular thing at the moment, is like, I wonder why these pictures are blurry, but it's more of your postnatal, you get like mom and baby yoga. So that's something that kind of falls into that too, but it's kind of where moms can also do yoga with their babies. I saw a friend now doing one training online where it's prenatal and baby massage or something like that. So sometimes if you're keeping an eye out for them, they usually bring two different modalities together. So there's a world of yoga out there. Any questions? How are we feeling? Who feels as though they might
I'm
want
not
to do
pregnant.
that? You're glad you're not pregnant. Have you had one child or two, Candice?
2.
I'm gonna say, because you're like, I've been pregnant for the last 3 years, and I was like, damn, a few years, that's a long pregnancy.
No, not 3 years. My first is 2.5, and the second just turned 1. They're 16 months apart. So when my first baby was 8 months when I got pregnant again with the second one. So I felt like I was pregnant, recovering, pregnant. Here we are.
And just from your perspective, did you feel that prenatal yoga made a difference on your I know you did it through both, so it's hard to know with or without, but did you find it was a beneficial practice for you?
Definitely 100%. I didn't do it as much with my second baby because I had a first baby to look after while I was pregnant with the second one, so I didn't have as much time to spend going to yoga. But it was definitely so beneficial. Like, I would recommend everybody who gets pregnant, like, immediately just go straight to prenatal yoga because it's just so beneficial.
See, coming from someone who's gone through it, I think, that says a lot. Go straight to prenatal. They know what they're talking about. If you want to be their teacher, do the training so you can know what you're talking about. It helps. Anyone here? Sorry, Dasha?
I say I agree.
I think it says a lot for us as teachers, and just when we spoke a lot about is that if we're going to teach something, just put in the work for it. You guys are here, you're putting in the work to be awesome teachers, and that's going to be great. And the learning continues. And I think that's amazing. And so does anyone here feel as though they want to maybe teach prenatal yoga? So you can just forget the last 90 minutes that we just spent together and just, well, you know what? You wouldn't know if you didn't try. Do you have a question, Sarah? You think maybe I'll do it?
No, I think I'd really enjoy it. I don't have kids and I don't plan on having any children right now. So, but like Candice, do you think it's something that you do have to have had kids to be able to understand it more?
I think it's beneficial to have
I find
felt
quite
it,
yeah.
but I don't think you need to be pregnant to be able to teach it. Just
No.
like with us, we don't need to be able to do a full dancer's pose to be able to teach it.
Yeah.
But I think
No,
if you do
think
have a good understanding of the aches and pains and the restrictions of movement and that kind of stuff, I think you can successfully teach it without having been through it yourself.
I think pregnant women go through so much and their bodies go through so much. I think it's quite a rewarding one. Like I think that I find it quite rewarding.
Yeah, I think the emotional aspect would be difficult to really understand because the hormones do make your emotions go a little bit crazy, and it's actually can be a very stressful period of time. There's a lot of pressure on pregnant women, like not only physically but emotionally as well. So I think that would be difficult to kind of grasp if you haven't been through that.
Yeah, I don't know, who knows, but I think it's quite a rewarding one.
Yeah, I think most yoga is rewarding, when you're working in some way or another you're passionate about. People who work with kids will also say kids yoga is rewarding, or if you teach yoga for geriatrics, it's also rewarding. So I think if that's where you get your passion, and if you think it'll be rewarding and you're intrigued about it, it's definitely something worth exploring. So that's kind of why we in this training specifically is that you get to dabble a little bit in prenatal yoga, and you get to dabble a bit in yin and kids yoga, because I think that's only going to help you as a teacher to go out there and go, I like this, I don't like this, I'm kind of curious about that. So there's worlds and worlds and worlds of different ways in which you can teach yoga. And I do think that this kind of gives you the opportunity to really find what you're most passionate about. So hopefully, and if that just means vinyasa, that's great. Then at least you've tried out the different styles. So that's it from me today. Are we happy? Are we content? We look good. Are we feeling slightly more energized? Not really. You guys are going to have a good nap tonight. Awesome. So just to remember, I did get some of your videos today because I was doing yin yoga the whole day. I haven't looked at them, but I've dedicated Sunday and Monday to watching them. So you guys will all hear from me by Tuesday. Those who've sent me questions, I've answered them, but you can just WhatsApp me, but that's fine. You guys are going to do great. I'm excited to watch them.
I hope you've got your popcorn ready because mine is a laugh.
It's a laugh. Why?
It's a laugh.
Don't worry, guys.
So much went wrong.
I do enjoy them. Last story before I go. I was doing my yin yoga. So this is now, I've done over 500 hours of training, and I was doing another training this morning. And I was teaching my yin yoga practical. And in the middle of the class, I giggled because I'm like, what am I doing? What? So I turned around to 200-hour students who did their training in May, who were doing the same advanced training with me now. And I said to them, you see, guys, I also don't get my practical exams right. So I know it's going to be fine. But I really am excited to watch them. So that's awesome. And then I think other than that, I only see you guys again next week. So enjoy your classes, and I'll see you guys again soon. Cool. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.